Today, my name is Martin. So today is June 6, 2022, and this is Peter, and his scientific specialty is
Entomology.
Okay, which is all insects.
Yeah, the study of insects.
But he's been working with bees for a long time, and he's explaining to us that this is a new home, and
a new box on the hive, and I've just given them more room. I bought these from Grand Forks a couple of weeks ago as a package of 4 frames.
Okay.
And I put that package of 4 frames on the hive stand, the base, expanded it by giving them more. Just open this up. Expanded it by giving them more frames to work with.
Okay.
Because the beekeeper, the beekeeper that usually when there's this lower population, you can get away with murder in terms of not putting protective kit on.
If you can speak a little bit louder, if you can.
Okay. So the 4 frames in the middle here were in the package that I bought for $275.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Came with a lot of bees and a queen.
Okay.
The queen was laying already in the package. And there was lots of brood, as in capped cells, in the comb that it came with.
Okay.
And if I didn't expand them fairly quickly, they'd have swarmed out of that small box.
Okay.
And gone find somewhere else. So I give them more frames, and these frames have got some honey in them, some pollen in them, and lots of space for the queen to lay her eggs. She lays 1,000 eggs a day when she's really into the process. And so that might be underestimated. Anyway, that's what happens. The bees have to have enough food, nectar, pollen to feed those babies. The queen doesn't feed them. She gets fed by the workers.
Yep.
But the worker bees feed the baby bees as they develop from the eggs into their larvae. And eventually, 21 days later, the cell has been capped and a new worker bee will emerge. I think the number 21 was significant. I'm very poor with numbers. It's an old head.
So you don't have a PhD in mathematics?
Definitely.
Okay.
Not.
Quick question is this royalty process is, I wonder if everything that these guys do for the queen is at least at the end of the day, does she go a little bit like this and at least wave to them a little bit at the end of the day for all the service that they do? They're great citizens.
Well, it's an interdependent relationship. She depends on them and they depend on her.
Yep.
So I don't know about the wave. The queen is not involved in the waggle dance, but the workers are.
Okay.
Even the drones.
She doesn't even do the bureaucracy.
She doesn't even do the bureaucracy. She just puts out chemicals which keep her workers happy, keep the colony together, and she is fed mouth to mouth by the bees, the worker bees, the same worker bees which will feed mouth to mouth to the baby larvae, the maggots inside the cells. No
unions are allowed to be formed, and nobody's going to vote in a mayor.
No, there's no voting at
all.
Well, okay. This is interesting. There's got to be some kind of voting goes on, because when you have a swarm, and the swarm settles in a bush, and you got a couple of 3 or 4 or 5 pounds of bees sitting in a bush, having left the hive because it was too crowded, then at some point, all those bees and the old queen that's with them have got to adopt a new home. And there's potentially more homes around than one. And so, first of all, scouts have got to go out from that swarm.
But those are consultants. Do they play a part in the decision, or the queen makes the final decision?
No, the queen doesn't make the final decision. No, the fellow, as far as we know, the fellow workers, the more active and enthusiastic a worker scout is, when it comes back to the colony on the swarm, it will tell the other bees. It gets more bees active and interested in where she's going. She will drift off back she'll communicate where it is with a waggle dance. She will drag a whole bunch more bees back to her location, and they vote by numbers. If there's another bee that's not quite so excited and the result is not quite so attractive to the other bees, so gradually the swarm
So presence instead of a ballot is the voting process.
Yeah, you vote with your legs or your wings.
Yeah, you show up and suddenly that's the decision.
Yeah. So I'm hoping these guys are getting lots of nectar. We need more sun to make the vegetation produce.
Yeah, because it rained really hard again this morning.
Crikey, yeah. I was all dressed for the rain when I came for a walk with the dogs, and I just brought my...
Where is Prince?
I think he's probably sitting in the shade by the car.
Prince is a nice, friendly dog I met. Oh yeah, sitting there in the shade down there. Anything else you wanted to finish up about this explanation?
Well, I feel very privileged to be keeping bees. I started out, as I say, 45 years ago.
Hey, you know, the queen and workers might decide that you're going to live over 100 like James Lovelock by keep showing up and giving you the numbers to keep and getting your ecocentric medicine interacting with these friendly swarms.
As long as I can do what I'm doing now and muck about with my bees and walk with my dog and watch the birds.
And wear purple hats like I do.
Well, this purple hat is covering a hole in my head.
Oh.
It fell on my head a few days ago.
Uh-oh. Just walking or cycling or?
I tripped.
Uh-oh.
Tripped on a branch, went down hard,
Uh-oh.
and had to have stitches. The mites that we're talking about, look about that size. They're quite tiny, but those aren't mites.
Yeah, we did talk about this, him and I, about the disease that we're still trying to figure out in North America that's attacking the bees.
The European bees, or at least the African bees, where the mite is most common, those bees have evolved natural resistance to the mite over the centuries, and the mite finally got spread by contact between different kinds of honeybees and the European honeybee. So it got into the European honeybee. The European honeybee in Europe has been exposed for longer than North America to these mites. And so they are not as resistant. The Africanized bees that you might have heard about, the killer bees of the 20, 30 years ago, those bees were brought to North America, South America, to be bred and genetically improve the local stock. Unfortunately, they got loose and became the killer bees, and they're very migratory, they're very inclined to swarm, and they don't sort of abscond, they leave a hive with very little.
I did a vlog about invasive species. Guess which one is at the top of the list?
Oh,
you are correct. Peter!
We are the most invasive species, but honeybees are of course not native to North America.
And we encourage the other ones, and we keep thinking we understand the process when we are the worst that has encouraged the other ones with us. So he suffers from some species alienation too, which is related to, you know, how our species has been anti-life on this planet for so long. It's a discouraging, depressing thing. But talking about it with the right person sometimes is a form of therapy, or being outdoor for this ecocentric medicine.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to say is, you know, with discovering, we have to get kind of our medical thinking out of this solution. So we can't necessarily be only looking for a cure to help the bees. We have to also try to find out why they are not adapting as quickly as, let's say, they would if our species wasn't on this planet. That is one thing to be investigating as well. What do you think about that?
I'm not sure what you're saying is quite accurate, whether they would adapt with or without us.
Well, do you believe their adaptation to this mite is going on an evolutionary schedule? I think it's being slowed down.
Well, to some degree that is correct, because we're applying artificial chemical controls.
Just by meddling with it, which is...
Chemical controls of the mite.
Yeah.
But if we don't in North America do that, we're likely to lose...
Food.
Oh, yeah, food. Right.
Not just honey.
Not just honey, but pollination services, which are so critical to our food supply. 1/3 or something like that. They say is dependent. 1/3 of human food is dependent on the
1/3. Wow.
Pollination services.
Wow.
And there's a book that I just finished reading, The Insect Crisis.
Okay.
So we've got the mammal crisis, the tigers, the elephants, the rhinos. We've got the fish problem and the plastics in the sea. There's so many. Coral is another one, right? But anyway, where was I?
You know, the elites also think the poor Homo sapiens, which I call Homo communia or people primates, they're also a problem, right? Oh, there's too many of these poor people. We need some to be our worker bees, but there's too many, so let's allow some to die. Really, is an elitist economic mental illness thing going on, right? Yeah.
There's lots of that happening.
So that book was talking about.
It's called The Insect Crisis.
Yeah.
It's brand new, like this year, I think it was published.
And that falls under your fields of interest, that book,
Yeah.
So you're over 80 years old. I don't want to say my age because I'm so old, but I'm going to turn 52 in a couple of weeks. So, I've had as much gray hairs as this. I just shave it off. I shave it off. You can see some in my beard. But I hope to be as in shape as you when I'm in my 80s, and hopefully to have learned more and created a bond with bees as well and do this. I'm going to stop the video soon just because it's a long one.
Yeah, right.
And here's our little
Cheers to have a
queen or king working with the queens. And there we go.